Do you ever feel like you're in survival mode as a father? We have a fair number of things to manage in this day and age: career, kids, our relationship with our spouse, and survival mode might be our default mode. And in fact, if we're not being intentional about what we think about and our actions and our routines, we will end up in default mode. In the causal coaching world, default mode refers to the lower brain and its agenda, which is threefold: conserve energy, avoid pain, and pursue pleasure. And this motivational triad of the lower brain is very important. It's kept the human species and the rest of the animal kingdom persisting through the ages. But if we don't pay attention, our lower brain ends up running the show. We do have a higher brain, our cerebral cortex, and it is responsible for planning and forward thinking. It requires more energy to use our higher brain. It requires stillness on our part, reflection, and it can be difficult to get there. But just becoming aware of where we're at cognitively and becoming aware of how the lower brain has been pulling us, that's a great start. There are three outcomes that the lower brain produces: apathy, boredom, and criticism. Because the lower brain wants to conserve energy, is programmed to conserve energy, it is not going to have a vested interest in anything that is above and beyond good enough. That is to say, if you're alive, your lower brain is satisfied. So if you're laying there in bed, it's a Saturday morning, and you had a good meal for dinner, you're hydrated enough, you have shelter overhead, your immediate needs are tended to, your lower brain has done its job and is going to resist you if you want to go above and beyond and do anything. Let's say you've got a to-do list for your Saturday that you want to go after. Your lower brain is going to be very apathetic about that. Very apathetic. So your bigger hopes and dreams are not on the agenda of your lower brain. Your lower brain does not care. It is going to make those things seem painful. It will present them as a painful situation to have to go through. Oh, you really don't want to have to try to figure that out, do you? That's what it's going to say. That's going to be rough. We don't know where to start. Let's just not do it. Classic lower brain line. Your higher brain will never tell you that. Now, because another job of the lower brain is to protect us from pain, we do end up getting bored because of that. We're avoiding situations that contain unknown variables. We're avoiding interacting with people because that could be potential pain. They might ask you to do something. You may find yourself in a situation where you're trying to solve a problem for somebody else. So the lower brain wants to limit your interactions with other people. And so you become bored. And then not only that, but we become critical as well. we become critical of other people, of the outside world. We're always watching for what is wrong, because that could be potential pain. So in the lower brain's effort to conserve energy, avoid pain, and to pursue pleasure, we end up apathetic, bored, and critical. And this is not really a fun place to be. Apathetic, bored, and critical. So we're in a little bit of a predicament. So the lower brain's like, you know what, let's pursue pleasure. Your brain wants dopamine. It wants a reward. It wants to be distracted from the cage of boredom and apathy and criticism that it has now created for itself. So it's quite a fascinating thing. It's a merry-go-round, if you will. And so we try to distract ourselves by what's known as buffering. Buffering is human behavior that ultimately has a long-term net negative effect on our lives, but it has a short-term distraction value. So a high short-term pleasure metric, but you end up feeling lousy afterward. And because you feel lousy afterward, you want to do more buffering, which distracts you from that layer of lousiness that you're feeling. And the social media world plays right into this so well. We have such easy access to highly concentrated visual stimulus, food stimulus, audio stimulus. It's just all around us. The society in which we live is highly primed for buffering, and it's a very monetized thing. So it's a critical distinction for us to be able to make, to know, okay, how much of my life is being run by my lower brain, by this default mode. This is what's happening by default. This is the majority of the world is living in default mode because the programming is so ingrained. It's so deeply rooted. I will put a link to this book in the show notes called The Pleasure Trap that goes into great detail about this by people way smarter than me. It articulates the motivational triad of the lower brain. We can't really get rid of it. We don't want to get rid of it. It has built-in inhibitions that, in general, keep us safe and keep the species going. We need that. But we don't want the lower brain to be running the whole show. So I like to refer to the lower brain's pull as primal tension. There's this tension between what the higher brain wants. We want to create things, we want to make things, we want to do things. We want to forge a path forward, onward and upward. But we do have gravity, right? Primal tension pulling on us constantly. It's never going to go away. Primal tension is always going to be present. The lower brain's motivational triad is always going to be active. We cannot snuff it out, nor would we want to. We just need to understand what's going on, and then we can push through that. We can push against gravity and go onward and upward toward the goals that we have set for ourselves, to be able to build the relationships with our kids and our spouse. And that's where the real riches in this world is in the relationships. Primal tension, the lower brain has a very low investment level in nurturing the kind of relationships that really matter. It's really easy to find examples of the lower brain in action. We get critical of other people, and here's the thing. Here's what's going on. We look at others, and the people that are the easiest to look at are our own family, right? Wife and kids. And we think to ourselves, how should they change so that I can feel better? We want other people to make adjustments so that we can feel better. Why, biologically, do we want that to occur? This is happening completely on a subconscious level. Here's the reason why. If we can outsource changes to other people, then we don't have to put in the cognitive effort required to feel better. So at the end of the day, our own thoughts create our feelings. Other people don't create our feelings. We create our feelings with our thoughts. But what we would really like, our lower brain, is saying, you know what? Let's get the other people to change what they're saying, what they're doing, and then we don't have to expend the effort because they'll have made the adjustments that we want. But even if they did, we would still find something else that we want someone to change. And it would just never end. The lower brain is highly active and way more active than is truly useful for us. I had to come to a point in my own relationship with our oldest boy because there was some breaking of curfew going on, which is not uncommon. I made no attempt to honor whatever curfew my parents had for me. I think they gave me a general guideline, and I don't think I followed it very often. I was thinking to myself, this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening. And I was always getting after him for the curfew. It would make me so upset. I would decide to feel disrespected over it and really just bent out of shape about it big time. And I felt like it was all of our conversations. I was talking about it way more than anything else. Like, our primary interactions were around the curfew. And I had to get to the point where I was like, do I want this to be the memory that my son has about our relationship? Do I want to look back and think, oh, yeah, all those memories of the broken curfew? Don't I want more than that? Yes, I did. So I said, you know what? He came home late. I said, we're going to Denny's right now. I had just finished up a second job that I was working. I got home late. It was like 11 o'clock at night when I got home, and he got home late. And I said, we're going to Denny's right now. And he seemed a little sheepish, a little uncomfortable about it. I said, we're not talking about this curfew thing. You're going to go to Denny's with me right now. And so we did. And it took about a half an hour for him to kind of open up and warm up a bit, and probably me too. But that ended up being a really awesome memory that we had. Because I decided, you know what? I get to decide what's important, and being in criticism mode isn't building our relationship. It's not helping. We're just going to do something different. We're going to focus on something else. So we did. That's what I remember about the curfew situation, that I decided that we had better things to do than to focus on that. I don't remember how much longer it took before the curfew situation got better, but that's when I stopped focusing on it. And in my mind, that's when things got better. That was something that I knew I could adjust, and I wanted to experiment with it, and it worked. It worked for both of us. So pay attention. Lower brain. It has a very simple agenda, and it's not always serving us or our relationships. The apathy and the boredom and the criticism produced by the lower brain are really not useful. So we want to make sure that we are engaging with our higher brain, our creative self, more to forge the relationships that we really want to have as a father, as a husband. And that's it for now.